Welcome back to Diabetes Prevention Program class. This is week number 4. I hope everything is going well for everyone and that you are either starting to see results or you're starting to feel a little bit better, feeling a little bit more confident. If this week has been hard, just remember to keep going, keep pushing through because not everything is easy every week. But today we are going to go ahead and get started on our lesson. And this week our lesson is on healthy eating. And so today we're going to be talking about how to find that balance of the appropriate amount of calories, carbs, fat, and just kind of putting it all together and what that looks like. Before we begin talking about that, we're actually going to take a second and just think about what your action goals were for last week and maybe write down some things that maybe went well or areas that you find maybe need a little bit of work. Okay, so going back to our lesson today, eating well and finding that balance, before we can even think about talking about balances in foods, we need to know what the foundation is. And so everything is based off of calories. And calories is just the measure of energy. So you get this from different things that you eat, whether it's pasta or peanut butter or Snickers. Everything that you're going to be eating is going to turn into energy. And that's what fuels you. It gives you energy and it makes you feel good. And so depending on how many calories you eat will depend kind of on how much maybe weight you gain, weight you lose, or if you just stay the same. So there are 3,500 calories in a pound. And so in order to be able to lose a pound every week, you would need to decrease either your calories by 500 a day, or you would need to burn 500 more calories a day by getting more physical activity. But since we're talking about eating healthy today, we're going to more focus on the foods that we are putting into our body. So when you are thinking about fat, we need to think about maybe why we choose foods that are low in fat. Maybe we're thinking about, okay, well, it's going to have less calories in it, or maybe there are other reasons that you would choose foods that are lower in fat. Maybe you're trying to work with maybe you have heart issues or cardiovascular issues, and so you want to do a more low-fat diet. And so another thing maybe, why are we trying to choose foods that are low in sugar? So maybe you are already having issues with having those high blood sugars, and so trying to decrease your carbohydrates is going to be a better option, and eating less sugar. So maybe it's eating less candy or eating less or drinking less sodas, things like that that are going to have sugar in them. And then maybe you look at eating foods that have more protein in it or less protein in it, because protein is still going to have calories. But when we are talking about foods that have fat, we need to remember that fat has the most calories in it when we are talking about comparing fat to carbs to protein. And so fat actually has twice the amount of calories in it. So we don't need as much fat in our diet as we would protein or carbohydrates. So the next topic is fiber. I love talking about fiber because fiber is so important for many different reasons. Fiber is important because it helps to keep our blood sugars more stable. It helps to kind of keep everything in our GI system moving better. But when we increase our fiber, we also need to remember to make sure to increase our water intake. Because sometimes if we don't, you can get a really bad stomach ache and everything kind of gets stopped in your intestines, and we don't want that to happen either. But fiber is also great because it can help with your cholesterol levels, and it also will help you to kind of feel full faster. So that way then we hope that you may not be eating as much at your meal times. And why does this matter for preventing type 2 diabetes? What does that have anything to do with? Well, it has to do with that you're going to be eating less food, so hopefully you'll be eating less calories, And hopefully in result, that'll help you to maybe lose a little bit of weight. But also, with your fiber, it helps take out some of those carbs so they're not being absorbed. So what that means then is that your blood sugar doesn't go up as high. And if you're having problems with your blood sugars going high, that fiber will help. So if you were to be looking at preventing type 2 diabetes and what foods you need to limit, those are going to be things that are going to be high in fat, calories, and sugar. It's going to be foods that are low in fiber, low in water, and foods that are low in vitamins, minerals, and protein. So that kind of boils back down to trying to limit those processed foods. Trying to limit things like candy or cookies or our Little Debbie snacks, but also trying to limit our sodas, our sweet teas, and trying to switch over to maybe our lean meats instead of our high fatty steaks or our other high fat meat products like sausage and bacon. So now we want to put this into practice, kind of thinking through some different ideas of how to increase our non-starchy vegetables, increase our fruits, and decreasing our high calorie, high starchy, high fatty foods. So thinking about what would make up a healthy meal. The goal is to have half of that plate filled with those non-starchy vegetables. If you open up your participant guidebook to page number 3, we will look at what a good healthy meal looks like. And this isn't necessarily going to be a meal that you would love to eat. But while we're talking about this, I want you to be thinking in your brain of maybe other foods that you do enjoy that would fit into this category that you could make into a meal for yourself that you would enjoy. So we're first going to look at, we have a piece of chicken here on our plate, and our chicken is probably, that piece is about the size of the palm of our hand. That's about 3 ounces of meat. That's a great serving size. And then we'll look here at our grains and starchy foods. This is going to be taking up about 1/4 of our plate. So together, our protein and our starches are going to take up 1/2 of the side of our plate. They have 2 potatoes on the plate. And for most of us, it would be hard to just eat those 2 potatoes. So trying to make sure that you do only have that 1/4 of a plate filled with those grains or those starches. And then what you'll notice is that half of your plate is filled with those non-starchy vegetables. They chose a salad here, but there's tons of other options that you could have put there. And if you'll look on page 5, it has a list of non-starchy vegetables that you can incorporate into your meals. It may be asparagus, broccoli, carrots, mushrooms, onions and peppers, tomatoes, and there are a ton more. So what I want you to do is take a second and write down on those 3 lines some of the non-starchy vegetables that are your favorite to eat. Okay, once you have written down your favorite non-starchy vegetable, we're going to look back in the bottom right-hand corner on page 5 at the grains and starchy foods. This is a pretty decent list of different grains and starches, and the great part is the list is made up of foods that are going to be high in fiber. So those are those good grains to eat. Those are good carbohydrates that are going to fuel you and going to keep you going for a while. So remember, 1/4 of our plate. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute again and write down 3 of your favorites. They don't have to be on this list. If there's other favorites of grains or starchy foods that you have, feel free to write those down there as well. Okay, once we finish that, we now have talked about the actual plate part. So we have our protein, our grains, and our non-starchy vegetables. But there's more to our plate as well. What you'll notice is that out on the side, we have a piece of fruit. So fruit is an excellent source of carbohydrates. They're a good source of fiber. And there's just tons of different varieties of fruit out there. And fruit is a great thing that you can finish your meal off with. If you want something sweet, that's a better option than having a dessert that's going to be high in calories, high in fat, and high in carbohydrates. So that piece of fruit, if you look on page 7, they have a few different types of fruits. And so, once again, let's take a minute to write down what your favorite fruits are. And maybe it's something you haven't had in a while. And hopefully these, kind of writing these down and looking at these will give you an opportunity to remember and see things that maybe you haven't eaten in a while that you would like to buy at the grocery store. Okay, once you have written down all of your fruits that you like, we're going to move on over to our dairy. Dairy is a very important part of a healthy meal. Incorporating it in different ways. You can do it with having a glass of milk for supper. You can add in a cup of yogurt. You could do some cheese, cottage cheese. Any of those are going to be a great option. And if you if you can't tolerate milk very well, you can always do a milk alternative. So almond milk, soy milk, any of those are fine. Because the important part is that you're getting that calcium in. And there is a list of dairy foods. So go ahead and take a second and write down what are some dairy foods that you like a lot that you could incorporate into your meals. Okay, and now we're going to finish with, right on the side, we have a glass of ice water. Water is really important in your daily needs. We need to be having at least 64 ounces of water a day, if not more than that. So trying to find ways to incorporate more water, whether it's drinking it at your meals or carrying a water bottle around with you, having a water bottle in your car so that you can drink while you're driving, taking a water bottle into Walmart or taking it when you go to your doctor's appointments. Those are just different ways that you can help increase your water intake, because if it's there, you're more likely to drink it. Whereas if you don't have it with you, you're never going to drink it. And there are other things too that you can do if you aren't a big fan of water by itself. So other things could be adding lemon juice to your water, and it doesn't even have to be fresh lemons. You can just buy those little containers of the juice and just squirt that in. You can squirt in lime juice. You could add in some of the sugar-free, like Crystal Light packets, things like that. But water is best, so we really want to drink water. And we really want to try and decrease those sweetened beverages that we are drinking, but have more water. And if you flip back to, let's see, on pages 5, 6, and 7 in your participant guides, and page 8 as well, it is going to go over just different lists and examples of foods that fit into every food group. And on page 8, it even goes into your sweet foods or your fatty foods. And so those, of course, are going to be the ones that you would like to limit. Do not feel like you have to completely cut those out of your diet and never eat them again, but just making sure that we are limiting them and having those less often. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every other week, but trying to really limit and not have those every single day. Alrighty, so now that we have talked about our meals and our plates and what those plates should look like, why don't you just take a minute and flip to the back of page 4 and label what each food group is and where each, whether it's the non-starchy vegetables, grains, protein, which is right up here, and write down what food group goes with each spot. Okay, so for our activity today, instead of making you do physical activity, we're going to be kind and we're going to talk about food, because everybody loves talking about food. So in my little bag here, we have bought 3 different frozen meals. And I know that it is not always hard it's not always easy to meal prep during the week. And there are Mondays or there's Fridays where you have no more food in your fridge, or you don't have anything prepared and you don't have time to fix something. So instead of going out to eat and getting something from a restaurant, another option is taking freezer meals to work. And I know in the past that freezer meals have been high in sodium, high in fat, high in calories, and not really all that good for you. But the times are changing, and we have 3 different options today. And these are just a small amount of options of things that they have in the freezer section that actually are healthy. So the ones that we got is a taco bowl. And this taco bowl has different kinds of rice in it. It has onions and peppers, potatoes, and chicken. It also has some fire-roasted tomatoes in it as well. So this is a pretty good freezer meal because it has those vegetables in it. It's only 290 calories. It does have a little bit more sodium in it, so it has 660 grams. And then it does have 19 grams of protein. So when it does come to freezer meals, 290 calories is not a lot. For most of us, that's not going to hold us till snack time. So adding in maybe another serving of vegetables and a piece of fruit would end up being a really good sized meal. So you can just buy a frozen bag of vegetables to go along with it and add that into it. So adding maybe a bag of frozen onions and peppers to this would make a complete meal. The next bowl that we have is a cauliflower curry. I know it's a little bit different, but I wanted to kind of just show you guys that there are a lot of options out there. There's a lot of different things. So this one it's a plant protein, so it has a blend of Swiss chard, kale, and spinach, some leafy greens. It has legumes in it, which are going to be yellow and red lentils. And if you've never cooked with lentils before, they're kind of like baby beans. They're a little bit more like buttery tasting, even though there's not butter in them. And then the vegetables it has is going to be cauliflower. And it also has brown rice and ancient grains. And it has a curry paste to go on top of it. This has 290 calories as well, 14 grams of protein, and only 400 milligrams of sodium, which for a low sodium diet, 500 milligrams is a really good number to try to get less than 500 milligrams for a meal. So that's why I said that 660 was just a little bit high. But for those of us that are eating a 2300 milligram sodium diet, that 600 is right around normal. So this last one that I got is a white bean and feta salad. It has different types of beans in it. And it has quinoa, a mixture of different rice. It also has a blend of Swiss chard, kale, and spinach. It has peppa seeds. It has feta cheese, and it has fruit in it. So the awesome part about this bowl is that it really hits every food group. It has our protein from our beans and our seeds. It has our grains from our rice. It has our vegetables. It has our dairy, and it even has our fruit in it. Once again, though, with every frozen meal, I really would encourage you to add in another serving of non-starchy vegetables, just because that bulks up your meal a little bit without adding very many calories. This bowl does have more calories in it, and that's just because it has that dairy and that fruit with it. So it has 470 calories, which is a very reasonable amount of calories for a meal. It has 530 milligrams of sodium and 16 grams of protein. So what you're hearing is that these meals, though they don't have meat in them, still have a good amount of protein, which is really important. If we don't have protein, we don't have fat, and we don't have carbs, you're going to end up being hungry or not satisfied by the end of your meal. So balance is key. Trying to get all 3 of those is really, really important as well. So these are the 3 meals that we've bought today. If you have any that you really like and you would recommend, feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call, let us know like what freezer meals you find to be tasty. Okay, so now that you've taken the time to fill this out, we are going to zoom in on the picture. I'm going to try to hold it still. And we're going to kind of go through what each food group is. So right up here at the top, this has half of our plate right here. So half of our plate needs to be our non-starchy vegetables. Your broccoli, your cauliflower, your carrots, your salad, tomatoes, onions. The list goes on and on. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner, those are going to be your grains. 100% whole grain is best. So your rice, quinoa, maybe it's your bread or your pasta. Over here in this bottom corner, we have our proteins. So chicken and fish, your beans, your eggs, all of those are great options for your protein sources. Down here we have our fruits. They have examples of strawberries and bananas and a fruit medley. Up here we have our dairy, so your yogurt, your milk, cheese. And then up here you have your non-sweetened zero sugar beverages. So water, coffee, unsweetened tea, all of those are going to be good options. So I hope you got a 100% and got all the answers correct. And if you did not, it's okay. This is all about learning and continuing to reach towards those new goals. So talking about our goals, we're going to now take a second and just plan another goal for next week. Set a goal of what you want to work on. Maybe you achieved your action plan last week and you're ready to move forward and set a new one. Or maybe you didn't quite reach that goal and so you want to try again. And that's okay. Either of those are great. We just want to keep trying to encourage you to keep moving forward and taking a step in the right direction. So just keep in mind when you are setting your goal, we want it to be realistic. We want it to be doable. We want it to have a specific time, maybe by the end of the week, or I will only do this 3 times a week, things like that. And then you want it to be flexible as well. So remember that you want to focus on your behavior. And we want to try and have fun. Do things that you are going to enjoy working on. And if you guys need any help, again, remember that we are here. So take a few minutes to try and come up with an action plan. And then lastly, just remember that when you do come to weigh in each week to bring your list that you've been tracking of your physical activity and your food tracking with us so that we can see it. And if you are watching this online, shoot us an email when you do watch the video to let us know that you've watched it and that you have totally loved it and it's been the best video that you've ever seen. But that's all we have for today.